thousands, said Phyllis. Is he still working? Asked Lucy. She knew the controversial sculptor, who was known for elevating simple household items into works of art, was a recluse who lived on a remote inland farm. I thought he died, offered Phyllis. No, he's alive and well. Somehow I can't see him donating one of his sculptures, said Lucy, who knew Klaus was notoriously tight-fisted, to the point of neglecting his person and his property. He lived in a huge barn that also served as a studio, and had been engaged in disputes with local officials involving a failing septic system and an ever-growing mountain of junk in his yard. A generous benefactor has donated the egg, said Corny, on condition of anonymity. I don't suppose Klaus would be willing to be interviewed, speculated Lucy, sensing an opportunity for a scoop. She was already thinking of questions she'd like to ask the artist, whose latest attempt to break into the nation's collective consciousness was a gilded toilet plunger exhibited a couple of years ago at a Soho art gallery. That toilet plunger was terribly derivative, observed Phyllis. A clear reference to that gold toilet that was stolen from Blenheim Palace. She paused, adding, "That's in England, you know." Lucy's and Corny's mouths both dropped in surprise, as Phyllis was not known for keeping up with the contemporary art scene, or any art scene for that matter. "Since when?" began Lucy. Phyllis smirked. "I was at the dentist yesterday, and you know he's got those ancient magazines in the waiting room. He was running late due to Eddie Culpepper's impacted wisdom tooth, and I ended up reading an old-time magazine." "Well, that is a relief," said Lucy, chuckling. "I was afraid you'd gone all artsy on me." "No chance." "How's Eddie?" asked Corny. "It was pretty awful," recalled Phyllis. "Lots of groans, and he looked pretty shaky when he left." "Poor kid," murmured Corny. "But getting back to the matter at hand, I've already spoken to Ted about a cent-a-spread ad, and I know you'll do a super story, Lucy." This was the sort of thing Lucy hated, but knew only too well was part and parcel of small-town journalism. Letting advertising drive news coverage always made her feel like a shill instead of a journalist. Business news was still news, she reminded herself, especially in a town where most of the businesses were still small family affairs. Pushing her resentments to the back of her mind, she turned her attention to Corny, who was saying, "And we're launching the promo tomorrow at the Siemens Bank. I know you'll want to be there because Karl Klaus himself has agreed to a photo op." Lucy doubted she'd heard correctly. "What did you say?" she asked. "Karl Klaus will be at the Siemens Bank tomorrow, 11 o'clock, for the kickoff." "Talk about burying the lead," complained Lucy. "Why didn't you say that sooner?" "Because I didn't want you to get too excited and start thinking about all sorts of questions. He said absolutely no interview, and you know his reputation. Frankly, I'm not entirely convinced he's going to show up." "Well, you can count on me," promised Lucy. "I'll be there." "Thanks, Lucy," said Corny, sounding relieved. "There's a lot riding on this. A lot of our businesses are on the edge. This promo's got to work, or we'll have even more empty stores on Main Street." Next morning found Lucy at the Siemens Bank, where a small delegation of business folk had gathered, awaiting the sculptor's arrival. Bert Cogswell, the bank president, was there, of course, along with Franny Small, representing the Board of Selectmen, and Tony Marzetti, who owned the IGA. These notables, as well as a handful of customers, were gathered around the coffee bar, a new addition to the bank, which had recently undergone a major renovation. For her part, Lucy missed the marble floor and the massive vault that had formerly held pride of place behind the barred teller's cages. She always had the feeling that her money was safe whether she was sliding a $5 birthday check from Aunt Helen beneath the teller's cage or making a mortgage payment. Nowadays, the marble was covered with thick carpet, the vault was discreetly hidden behind a newly constructed wall, and the associate seemed to hang out rather casually behind an island. Customers who needed to confer with a banker were invited to wait in a seating area with a curvaceous sofa and a coffee table on which to set their free cups of coffee. The clubby atmosphere didn't inspire confidence, thought Lucy, who carefully balanced her checking account every month. "Ah, Lucy, are you here to cover the big event?" asked Bert Cogswell. Well, the bank employees were now encouraged to dress in